Good morning, everybody. Jim Crimmins here. Another beautiful day in Peoria. Hope you're having a good day where you are. Let's get the legalities out of the way and then we'll get started here. If you have any questions about our presentation today, you can certainly email me there at jimc@smallbusinessfinancials or call me. You can use the 623 number. My extension is 213. So either way, feel free to contact me to get anything clarified that I might not have gone over good. Budgeting is the least liked item in the management toolbox. Over the years, I've hated to do budgets, and I know all small businesses probably hate to do them because they're saying, hey, we're just doing guesstimates here. What good does it do to do guesstimates? I can spend my time doing other things more profitably. But a small business budget allows you to think about how you're going to allocate your resources in the future. Your resources are money, employees, vehicles if you use vehicles, and all sorts of expensive items. If you've just purchased or opened a small business and you know your trade, then it comes to bookkeeping and more specifically budgeting. Your skill set is probably lacking. That's okay. The good news is that it's possible to come up with a budget or at least a good estimation of what will be needed in terms of dollars and cents. So let's go through this and learn a little bit more about budgets. Why create a budget? Well, the first thing is to plan for the future. If you do a budget and it's realistic, and I always like to do mine pessimistic rather than optimistic, you can plan for the future. You can see how your business is going to be throughout the year. It allows you to manage your cash flow, which is the most important job you have. If you need to go after financing, obviously the bank or whoever it is going to want to see your budget for the upcoming year. But the most important thing it does is allow you to know where you're going. In my opinion, even though I said I hate to do them, budgets are enormously important to the operation of any small business. Why create a budget? Not only do they help you manage your costs, but they also help you determine whether your profit goals are within reach. And it's realistic, and that's why I say I always like to do mine pessimistic rather than optimistic. If you're real optimistic with what your profit's going to be, and then you start missing it, you start getting depressed. Whereas if your business is going to be throughout the year, or it allows you to manage your cash flow, feeling which is the most important job. And remember that at least 50% you need to go after business success is psychological. Obviously, the bank or whoever it is estimating and matching expenses to revenue is important because your budget for small business owners. But the most important thing whether they have enough money to fund operations or expand the business if that's what they want to do, or generate enough income for themselves. I hate to do them. I know budgets are enormously important to the operation of any small business. I had been working for major corporations and spending most of my life in airplanes and hotels. And my wife and I decided that that was not the way we wanted to spend the rest of our life. So we decided to find a business and go into business for ourselves. Well, I traveled a lot on the East Coast. And I'd seen a lot of these small bakery cafes. And it looked so simple to me. Well, that was the first mistake I made. Operating any kind of a food service is not simple. But anyway, we went into the business, called it the baking company in Bellevue, Washington, and didn't have a budget or a plan of how we were going to go. Well, for the first 14, 16 months, even though we thought we would be able to didn't budget, thought we'd be able to take a small salary out of there, there was no way in hell we were going to get a dime out of the business. We needed it all just to pay the bills. Had we sat down and done a realistic budget, we would have known that right before we started the business and could have made a decision as to whether we really wanted to start it or not. So without a budget or a plan, you might not make a lot of money in March and decide to spend it all. Or, I'm sorry, you might make a lot of money in March and decide to spend it all, not realizing you'll not have enough money in April to pay for the bills. A budget helps smooth out the typical sales variations all small businesses do. Budgets are important. As an example, looking at any budget you create for the next quarter, you can anticipate peak periods and know that you're going to have enough help to cover those. You're going to order enough stock to be able to handle it, particularly if you're in the retail or the food service business. Because if you run out of, if you're in the food service business and you're serving croissants and you run out of frozen croissants to bake off, you're no longer in the croissant business. So you need to be able to schedule these looking at something. If you're in retail, you run out of things to put on the shelf, you're out of business. Budgets aren't based on the concept of how much can I spend in my business this year. Rather, budgets are more comprehensive in nature, and they're designed to capture all relevant and critical financial data, including what you think your revenue will be, your cost of goods sold, your operating expenses, fixed asset expenses, which of course are any capital equipment you purchase, and any other capital requirements you might have. So budgets are really important. Well, Jim, if they're so important, how do I do it? I've never done a budget in my life. I'm not sure yet that I want to do a budget. But how do you do it? Well, there's budgeting software you can purchase. If you use QuickBooks, QuickBooks has a budgeting module in it. I like to use Excel because I can play what-if games without changing a lot. If you've got previous budgets, you can look at them. If you've got previous results, that's the best place to start. If you've been in business for a year, go back to last year, think hard and say, am I going to have an increase this year or a decrease? And if you say I'm going to have an increase, okay, what percentage is a realistic, anticipatory amount to budget? And if it's a 10% increase, then you would just take your revenue from last year, build you a revenue module with a 10% increase, and you may, as you start thinking about it, say, hey, you know, I don't think I'm going to have a 10% increase each month. Some months I may have 12%, some months I may have 8%. Well, factor that in. While you're in the thinking process, those things will come to you. Once you've got your revenue in, then you can look at your labor cost. How many people am I going to need on staff to be able to create this much revenue? And you can budget that. Same thing with your cost of goods sold and your other expenses. So it's not as hard as it seems, but you need to set aside a good part of a good amount of time to do it. There's no point in preparing a budget that does not capture your company's true economic structure. And the last thing I've got on your slide is to use the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. You don't have to get in there and make everything hard. Keep it as simple as you can. Then you won't mind doing it. Preparing an actual budget, summarize first in an annualized budget. After you sit there and think about it, then lay out your normal financial statement and fill in the categories. The best way to dive into preparing a budget after all the necessary information has been accumulated, and that would be past history if you have past history. That would be a swag if you don't and you're just starting your business. It's going to be a wild guess, but it can become a well thought out wild guess. So you want to begin by building a draft of the budget and summarize it in nature. When you've got that done, then start expanding it. Then from the annual budget, take it down to a quarter. And from the quarter, take it down to a month. Now, that's controversial because some people like to do it by the month. I, for one, like to do it month by month by month and come up with an annualized business. So there's not real set ways of doing this. It's what you feel the most comfortable doing. What is a living budget? Well, today's economy is moving so fast that what we think in October or November when we're preparing the budget for the next year, what we think is going to happen may not happen. So a living budget is based on the idea that in today's fiercely competitive marketplace, business models change much quicker than they did 10 years ago. While the budget prepared in the fourth quarter of the previous year looked good then, 6 months later, the story may have changed and changed big. With this thought in mind, you want to be prepared to change your budget. Once it's done, it's not in stone. Excuse me, I need a little coffee. So with this in mind, you want to be prepared to change your budget by playing what-if games based upon what's happening in the economy. You want to do it on sales staff. If you were in North Dakota the past 5 years and you were running a McDonald's, you had to start figuring out that you were going to have to pay your employees a heck of a lot more than you were before, or they were going to go to the oil fields. Years ago, my wife and I took a trip to Alaska, and as we were coming back through northern Alberta, Canada, we decided that we wanted to go to the Oaks Club for dinner one night. We got there. Well, we had found out that they have dinner on Thursday nights on the internet. It was a Thursday night, so we got to the Oaks Club. Their bar wasn't even open because they couldn't hire anybody. Everybody that could work was up working in the oil fields. So that can change. That's going to affect your business. That will definitely affect your business. If you're running a small bakery in Bellevue, Washington, and all of a sudden a whole bunch of publicity comes out about how bad fattening food is for you, and you're serving muffins, sticky buns, cinnamon rolls, and croissants, you might want to rethink your budget, at least until that short period of time that all of us Americans realize things stay exciting on the television, until that passes, because it's definitely going to affect your business. So when you see something coming down the pike, and that's why I like reading the Wall Street Journal. Now, I'm not putting a plug in for it, but the Wall Street Journal alerts you to things that are coming, and you figure out how it's going to impact your budget, then change it. Change your budget, and that will also allow you to change the number of people you have working for you, the amount of product or foodstuffs you're going to buy, anything like that. The real key to a budget lies in management being able to understand the information but more importantly, act on it. I've done just a real simple budget here on the screen, and I'm showing the budget and the actual. Now, a lot of people just use the dollar amount on the variance. I like to use a percentage, because if I have a revenue percentage of 2.3%, I should almost expect my gross profit to go up by at least 2.3%. So I really like the percentage. In this case, we see that we've got some wild swings here. Our sales have gone up. Our cost of goods sold have gone down, therefore driving our gross profit to an increase. Our administration expenses have gone up. Depreciation stayed the same. Interest was relatively the same. And other expenses went down. So instead of losing $173,000, we made $3,000, which is a 99% increase. Well, now comes the hard part. We've got this information. What do we do with it? Well, let's try to figure out why we had this increase. On the cost of goods sold, did we raise our prices? Did our vendors lower their prices, or did we find better vendors to use? What caused the cost of goods to go down? Because that is a big aspect of increasing our profit. Our sales were 2.3% higher. That's not much, but why? Is there anything you can point to other than you were brilliant to cause that effect to happen? Your administrative expenses went down, but only by $5,000, so there's not a lot there. Depreciation stayed the same. Your interest expense should be pretty calculatable, and it would worry me that I was $500 off on my interest expense unless I had bought something that I hadn't planned to buy on time. But my other expenses went way down. Now, why? Why did they go down so far? 26%. You better get in there and figure it out. Maybe your bookkeeper didn't put an invoice in for some other expenses. You know, what happened? Figure it out, and then you'll know why your net profit went way up, which is a good thing. But don't just assume that it's up that far because you're so good. Now, why budgets are so important? Because they help you manage your cost. And if you've heard me give any webinar, you know that my shtick is cash flow management. And budgets are enormously important to the operation of your business. They help you manage your costs. They help you determine whether your profit goals are within reach or should be modified. And all of this will affect your entire organization. Now, our next webinar will be Thursday next week. I think it's going to be at noon, so this slide is way off. And it'll start over with our webinar number 1. Remember, this is a 12-part series. It goes on for 12 weeks, all small business related. So go to our website, www.smallbusinessfinancials.com, and look at the schedule of webinars, because we'd love to have you on. We'd love for you to tell other friends that are in small businesses about this. They're absolutely free. We're not trying to sell anything, nothing. So tell your friends to come. They might learn something. It's time for questions. Let's see if we have any today. Takes me just a minute to get in here and look at them. and I don't see any today. Thank you so very much for attending. I hope to see you back next week, and I really hope that you'll start thinking about doing a budget if you haven't in the past. If you've got any questions about budgeting, give me a call. There's my phone number and extension. There's my email address. Feel free. Thanks so much now. Bye.